God has the perfect timing, never early, never late. It takes a little time, patience, a whole lot of faith, but it is worth the wait. I've had that moment of wow where now I feel all the pieces fit. And until that time, I didn't have this moment of wow. And now that I've had it, it's time for me to share it with all of you because I really feel that we are at the time when time is short and it's time to act and be ready. What should we be acting and be looking for? Being redeemed and called home. Now, in my earlier studies, I've been pushed to look at the Enochian slash Jubilee calendar, this 364-day concept of following the sun and getting God's calendar right. This is the calendar that was supposed to be eternal, but it hasn't. People have turned to their own ways, their own calendars. The Hebrew calendar, the Gregorian calendar, for instance. Hebrew calendar is following the moon and not the sun. Um, Now, Jubilees 634 and 37 specifically tell us that by not following this calendar in the past years, they will forget new months, seasons, and Sabbaths, and they will wrongly determine all the order of the years. And it's further said, for this reason, years will come upon them when they disturb, misinterpret the order, and make an abominable day a day of testimony, and a unclean day a feast day. And they will confound all the days, uh, the pure with the unclean, and the unclean day with the pure, for they will go wrong as to the months and Sabbaths, feasts, and jubilees. And admittedly, I've been one that has been doing it wrong too. And have prayed for getting this right, and it's a step-by-step process because you can't just follow one thing. That's what I've realized. You can't just go by uh, uh, the sun, the moon, the stars. You gotta include everything. And, finally, again, I feel that I have done that. This is what I want to share. So what I realized is that I really hadn't included into figuring out the calendar the star concept, adding that to the sun and moon. Knowing that we're still here and haven't been brought home by Father, um, I don't believe that we would need to wait a year or more from a sign that was given back supposedly in 2017. I don't believe that necessarily was the sign of the Revelation 12:1. Instead, I think that we got to look at it differently. We've got to look at this more at the here and now, and really look at the constellation and what Revelation 12:1 says, where it says, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. She, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered." Now, I want to emphasize the point that it says she pained to be delivered. Not the child, but the woman pained to be delivered. Going back to the constellation and the stars, we look at the constellation of Virgo being where we should find this sign of when the virgin shall be delivered. And what we find specifically is that in Revelation 14:4, it says who the virgin is, where it says, "These are they which were not defiled with women," and women being like churches, churches, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever that he go. These were redeemed from among men, being the firstfruits unto God and to the Lamb. Now, the big hoopla for last year was that there were 12 stars, supposedly the stars of Leo, and added into them was planets that added to what was they were saying were the 12 stars of the on the head of Virgo. Um, but what we find out, and I found this from a philosopher by the name of actually an astronomer, Professor Thorley, um, who was shown that there are 12 stars surrounding the head of Virgo, as we view them from the Earth. And if one will look at Norton's Star Atlas, 12 visible stars will be seen around Virgo's head. They are, according to astronomical terminology, pi, nu, beta, sigma, chi, iota, and those are the 6 stars. These are 6 stars form the southern hemisphere around the head of Virgo. Then there are Theta, Star 60, Delta, Star 93, Beta, and Omicron. And these last 6 form the northern hemisphere around the head of Virgo. So indeed, we don't need to have looked for this the extra planets around Leo, because there are 12 stars in the head of Virgo. So we can look this year and see if the sun and the moon are in also the vicinity of the constellation Virgo, and see when that happens. So again, recapping what we're looking for the woman clothed with the sun and the moon at her feet. We already know from what I just showed you that the constellation Virgo automatically has 12 stars at her head. So I was led by Sister Pamela to this video that showed us that these were wrong this year, and that they were off a month. And I looked at this video, and some chewed the grass and spit out the hay, like Sister Sherry has always told us to do. And in the process of it, I did get out of it this date to specifically look to. And by the way, when it does say under her feet as far as the moon, I did do some research on that also, and I found out that doesn't need to be actually under her feet. That the Greek word for under comes from a word called hypo, and that word hypo, G what is it, G5259, if anybody wants to look it up, means either by or under, so it can be by her feet. And like I say, I was pointed to this video, and I was shown that there is this date coming up, October 10th, 2018, that we see this happening in the constellation of Virgo. So although Yahushua was born during the Feast of Trumpets, sometime between 6 BC and 2 BC. Um, and Sister Sherry says that it was that year it was on a September 11th. Um, we do note that again, the woman pained to be delivered, not that she was delivered then. So that's the sign that that would be the Feast of Trumpets, that she was just painting to be delivered. So we're close, and that's what we needed to locate that timing. Now we go from the date of October 10th, when she was painting to be delivered. Next, I want to go to Micah 4:10, where it says, "Be in pain and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go even to Babylon. There shalt thou be delivered. There the Lord shall redeem thee from the hand of thy enemies." And Sister Sherry has told us that indeed Mystery Babylon is the United States. I think this is where the redeeming will occur. And that's what we're going to look for. So turn to Deuteronomy 31:10 through 12, that basically says at the end of every 7 years, in the solemnity of the year of release, in the Feast of Tabernacles, when all Israel is come to appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose, thou shalt read this law before all Israel in their hearing. Gather the people together, men and women and children, in thy stranger that is within thy gates. I think that's a time that we've got to look at next. Within the Feast of Tabernacles, I think we're going to find that that could be the very timing of when the woman will be delivered. Now, backtracking a little bit, I do want to go back to this Enochian Jubilee calendar and insert now the date of October 10th into the 7th month in the first day of that month. Now, the day before October 10th would be October 9th. And this is interesting because if we look at the book of Enoch in chapter 73, I think it's chapter 73, I just want to make sure it's either 73, yes, chapter 73, it mentions that the first phase of the moon is on the 30th day of a month, and that's the day that she sets with the sun. And when the sun rises, the moon rises with him on that day. So now we can look at that and see if indeed that's what we see. We know that Enoch was on Mount Hermon when all this happened. Mount Hermon is in Baghdad. So turning to Baghdad and looking at the moon and sun times of sunrise and sunset for October 9th and around that date, we can see that on the 8th, the sun set at 5:37 p.m. and it rose on the 9th at 6:02. Whereas the moon, we can see, rose at 6 o'clock on the night and set the night prior at 5:32. So very similar times there, about as similar as one can get. I think that is indeed a match for the 30th day. And again, that would be the 6th month that we'd be looking at on the Enochian Jubilee calendar. This date would also correspond to October 9th, when we do see that indeed a new moon in Baghdad. Now, further looking at these moon phases, we also see that on October 24th in Baghdad is a full moon. And if we look at the book of Enoch again, at the full moon, we actually show that on the 14th day she accomplishes her light, and 15 parts of light are transferred to her until the 15th day, when her light is accomplished. A full moon. 15th day of the Enochian calendar of the 7th month matches with October 24th. So I think I've shown you that following constellations, following the sun, of course the sun following that is following the calendar, and following the moon, we can see that everything is falling into place as far as what we read then in Enoch and Jubilees, how things were said that they would be. Indeed, they are. Now, we were told that the Sabbaths would be off by not following the 364-day calendar. So by following it, and what I've seen on the calendar that I've comprised, is that it very well could be that our Tuesdays are the true Sabbath days that should be followed on the Enochian Jubilee calendar. So with October 23rd being a Tuesday, and thus being a Sabbath day on that calendar, the Enochian, we need to look at Ezekiel 46:1 and remember that the gate of the inner court that looketh towards thee shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be open, and on the day of the new moon it shall be open. So this would be a day, Sabbath, that would be open, and the Prince Yahushua could actually be coming for us. Remember, cry was made at midnight. So let's look a little bit closer. Remember the sign, the woman is delivered, but the cry is made by the man-child. The delivery is about to happen. Let's go back to the constellation of Virgo, and let's look at October and the date of October 22nd specifically, where the sun of righteousness, there is right on the border of leaving the constellation of Virgo. And what do we see on October 23rd? But indeed, the sun has left the constellation of Virgo. I think this is a sign of when we go home. Very well could be the midnight hour of the 22nd into the 23rd. What do we see on the 23rd? Again, looking at the book of Enoch, specifically chapter 60, we see that he got this parabel on the 7th month, on the 14th day of the month, which would correspond with October 23rd. And in that parable, he saw how a mighty quaking, made the heaven of heavens to quake, and the host, the Most High, and the angels, 1,000 thousands and 10,000 times 10,000, were disquieted with a great disquiet. And we further then see that on that day, it says that the Leviathan and the behemoth was let go and released. And I think this is an indication of them leaving and us going home. So I want to go to Psalm 91 that tells us, surely he shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His trust shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor the arrow that flieth by the day, nor the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall by thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. So it sounds like that's what will be happening then. If we turn back to Enoch chapter 61 that just follows chapter 60, we see this great verse, verse 4. It says, the elect shall begin to dwell with the elect. And this is what I believe is going to be happening then. Angels will be taking us home, and we'll be going home right prior to the Feast of Tabernacles. And if we look at the Feast of Tabernacles, we do find that there is a 7-day happening with the Feast of Tabernacles. What did it say back in verse 60 of the book of Enoch? It talked about the earth shaking and everything when these Leviathan and Behemoth come through. I believe those are ships that come through. Ships, planets, whatever. Yeah, you have these anomalies in the sky that come through. And they're going to wreak havoc on the earth and cause this pole flip, a 7-day event that I think is going to correspond with the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, Sister Sherry has specifically told us the details of this 7-day event of a pole flip. The first day will be winds. Some areas will lose power on the first day. Everyone will on the second day. Second day, the severity will get worse. Electrical grids are down. Everywhere, no power. Third day, the earth will tilt over and the brute force winds, everything will go dark. With brute force winds, and everything will go dark. Tsunami waves, earthquakes will feel like the earth is breaking, splitting in half. Coastlines will sink. All the plates under the earth will shift. Underground bunkers will be destroyed. They will collapse and flood, and fires will start everywhere from the suddenness of the changes. What isn't flooded will be burned. The tunnels and cavities under the earth will be filled with water. Earthquakes will be chaos. People will start fires, candles, oil lamps, earthquakes will cause fires to start everywhere, and they will run out of control. Fourth day, darkness. The winds will cease. Those trapped under the earth, mostly creatures at this point, will be fleeing to the top. Fifth day, darkness, chaos everywhere. Creatures will be unleashed on the earth. Those in containment will break free. Sixth day, partial darkness. The earth will begin to tilt back up, causing strong winds again. Seventh day, the light will return, the winds subside. On the 8th day, they plan to arrive. And so it's interesting to note that the 8th day actually falls on the I don't know if I call it a celebration. The On Halloween, I'll just say October 31st. And it's interesting to note that back on June 8th, 2013, I had a dream, and it was nighttime. I looked up into the sky and I could see three planetary objects, of which the middle one was reddish in color. My guess it very well could have been Nibiru. Not sure what the other two were. I think there were words under them, but as I tried to view them, my view got blocked by trees. I tried to race forward to see it again, but when I got past the trees, all I could see was fireballs. I then saw the word Halloween and symbols of Halloween time flash across the sky in a large brown colored wolf. Now, this was all kind of cartoonish, um, as I remember, and I started challenging the wolf figure with fighting words. And the next thing we were tussling, and I was throwing fists to his head, and then the dream ended. Throughout the years, I've always remembered that dream, and wouldn't it be something if indeed that's what I was being showed? That's the time uh, that they arrive on Halloween. And if we turn to Revelation 12:7 through 9, it says, "And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him." And so, in closing, I just wanted to let you know that this is what I see. This is what I feel I've been taught. And this is what I wanted to share with you. Whether it's correct or not, only time will tell. And Father, again, knows that perfect timing whenever it's going to be. I just point out possibilities and what I see. It's been a pleasure.